Okay, so for the next financial measures of activity, we have benchmarking. Okay, so benchmarking uses the best practices that can be found within and outside of the organization. So these practices can be used as a standard for evaluating and improving the activity performance. So the objective of this is to become the best at performing the activities and practices. So benchmarking normally is just um, looking into the best practices of the other organization or within our organization as well. Okay, and then we practice those for continuous improvement in the performance of the activities and processes. So internal benchmarking is benchmarking against internal operations. So here, the management should look and evaluate on their operations if they think these are the best practices that they have, and they should retain it and maintain. Okay, so within an organization, there are different units that perform the same activities, so they are being compared, okay, and the results as well are evaluated. So the unit with the best performance for a given activity will be set as the standard. So other units then will have a target to meet or exceed those performance. Okay, so external benchmarking, on the other hand, it involves comparison with the other organization outside of the entity. So there are three types of external benchmarking. So they are competitive. So here we compare activity performance with our direct competitors. Second is functional. So here we compare with firms that are in the same industry but do not compete in the same market. And the last is generic benchmarking. So here we will study the best practices of non-competitors that are outside of the firm's industry. Okay, so those are for benchmarking. And the last financial measures of activity is the activity capacity management. So here, when we say activity capacity, this is the number of times an activity can be performed. So the activity drivers will measure the activity capacity. So if there are capacity variances, so these are used to determine the potential for improvement and the progress that should be made in the objective of eliminating the waste and non-value adding activities. So two capacity variances are defined here and calculated. So the first one is activity volume variance and the unused capacity variance. Okay, when we say activity volume variance, this is the difference between the actual activity level acquired, or our AQ, and the value added standard quantity, okay, activity that should be used. So that is our SQ variable. And then we will multiply it by the budgeted activity rates. This is how it's computed. Okay. So in this case, if our AQ is more than our SQ, then our variance is said to be unfavorable, which indicates that non-value added cost is present. Okay. So when supply exceeds demand by a large enough quantity, so the management can take action to reduce the quantity of those activity provided. Thus, for the unused capacity variance, on the other hand, this is defined as the difference between activity uh, availability, or AQ, and activity usage, or AU. And then you will multiply it by the budgeted activity rate. So this is how you determine it. Okay. So the goal here is to reduce the demand for the activity until such time as the unused capacity variance will equal to our volume variance. Okay, so because the reason for this is that our volume variance is a non-added cost, and the unused capacity variance measures the progress made in reducing those non-value added costs. So this is how it is used. Okay, thus, the variance is labeled as favorable. Okay, so those are for our financial measures of activity.